Good morning. I'm Nissan Barlev, Director of Special Education for CISA 7, and with me today, as in every WSCMS presentation, is Jan Sirak, Executive Co-Director of Wisconsin Facet. We would like to welcome you to our presentation on dispute resolution options available to parents and schools. We know that issues, conflict, disputes sometimes arise related to planning or implementing IEPs for children with disabilities. The Wisconsin Special Ed Mediation System, WSCMS for short, has been helping parents of children with disabilities in schools resolve these disputes since 1996. This presentation will provide you with an overview of the WSCMS design, which is a unique system nationally, what kind of options for early dispute resolutions are available, how to access these options, as well as we'll share with you WSCMS longitudinal data. WSCMS has been funded by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction with an IDEA discretionary grant to CISA 7 since 1996. Marge Resan is the DPI liaison to WSCMS. For 17 years, the charge of the discretionary grant has been to administer the Wisconsin Special Ed Mediation System statewide, provide training and outreach about the system, and to collect annual and longitudinal data for ongoing evaluation of the system. The system is unique nationally in that it is led by a partner team that includes a special ed director, that's me, a parent, Jan Sirak, and a dispute resolution professional, Nina Meyerding, an internationally known mediator, lawyer, and university professor who conducted over 4,000 mediation and numerous trainings on dispute resolution around the world. Staff for the system includes Jane Burns from Burns Mediation Services. Jane is the system administrator and intake coordinator. When you call WSCMS, she is the person who you speak with about your issues. She explained what is involved with mediation or facilitation and assign cases to the mediators and facilitators. Now, Senior Roblowski, a parent and member of the Wisconsin Facet administrative team, is the multicultural outreach coordinator. As part of an OSEP initiative, CADRE, the Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution in Special Education, CADRE undertook a process to look at all 50 states and identify state special ed dispute resolution systems that are particularly effective and to characterize those systems and their component in ways that will be useful to other states who are considering improvement activities. 4 states, Iowa, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, were identified as exemplars. Profiles were developed so that these states' dispute resolution system could be viewed in their entirety and used as potential models. In our case, it was largely due to the high level of stakeholder engagement in planning, design, and management of our dispute resolution system. Not only did we engage 17 key stakeholders in designing WSCMS back in 1996, but the 2 partners, an educator and a parent, continue to manage the system on a daily basis and model partnership throughout. 4 other reasons Wisconsin was selected. Number 1, Wisconsin DPI contracts with a neutral mediation center, WSCMS, to manage the 3 components of the system: mediation, IEP facilitation, and resolution process. Mediation always included a historically high rate of signed agreement. IEP facilitation, Wisconsin was one of the first pioneer states to add this option. Resolution meeting facilitation, also, Wisconsin was one of the few states to offer this option of using a facilitator to help with the resolution meeting, offering that option to school district and parents. Another reason that Wisconsin utilizes a nationally recognized technical expert, Nina Meyerding, as part of the partner team. Also, that Wisconsin DPI has used a dispute prevention process called collaborative rulemaking to reach consensus on state special ed laws before public hearing take place. For example, the legislation on mediation as well as the legislation on aligning Wisconsin Chapter 115 with IDA 2004. And the last reason Wisconsin was selected is our engagement in continuous quality improvement practice, as is the use of our surveys at the conclusion of every mediation or IP facilitation. We seek feedback from the participants in order to identify how we could improve the system in the future. This is Cadre's web page containing the 4 exemplar state, and it contains state profile. You can download each state or as a combined publication of all 4 states. Wisconsin profile is available in your handouts already provided for you. The website also includes video resources, including a video with Patty Williams talking about our system, which you will be able to hear and see shortly, as well as a resource showcase that we will address now. This is Cadre's database of all those hundreds and hundreds of documents that were provided to Cadre by the 4 exemplar states. And this database is organized by columns and vertical lines. The columns include such topics as mediation, IP facilitation, resolution meeting, etc. And vertically, there are such statements as policy, procedure, training, outreach, professional standards, etc. There's a lot of information available on the Cadre website. A cornerstone to the work and philosophy of WSCMS has been our ongoing system approach to engaging stakeholders in the initial design and ongoing monitoring of the system. When DPI awarded CISA 7 the first grant in 1996, CISA 7 subcontracted with Wisconsin Facet for the parent view to obtain the parent perspective, with a professional mediator to design a mediation system, and I represented the school perspective. These 3 were later known as WSCMS partners. We brought together a stakeholder council of 17 members that you can see on the slide, included representation from parent groups and school groups, attorneys representing parents and attorney representing schools, representation from Wisconsin DPI and DHFS, chairs of the Assembly and the Senate Education Committees, as well as representation from the Governor's Office. WSCMS partner team facilitated a series of meetings over the course of a year to develop to enable the legislative language of the mediation system. Involving stakeholders in a truly genuine, not token way meant that all of them actually participated in writing our state rules. The stakeholders shared their values and ideas related to what they were expecting from the mediation system, how the system will be set up, evaluated, promoted. These 17 representatives were very diverse and were often conflicted in their ideas about what the system should look like. The stakeholders helped our WSCMS team understand what the people who would be using the system wanted, what they expected of the system in the future, how it could be delivered for mutual benefit to all. Power and resource differentials were dealt with upfront, with parents and school at the table with an equal voice. We finally reached consensus of all of the stakeholders. Result was Wisconsin State Statute 115-797, signed into law by Governor Tommy Thompson on December 19, 1997. As creator of the system, stakeholder council members have been good strategic partners who continues to promote the use of the system and continues to stimulate growth of the system. We provide them with annual data from the system. We seek input from them when any changes in the system are contemplated. For example, the Stakeholders Council was consulted when we were considering adding the IEP facilitation process to the option we had available. And again, once the facilitated IEP process has been running a while, we asked them to consider a recommendation to limit facilitated IEP to no more than 3 hours, figuring that if it took much longer, it should be a mediation. The Council was also consulted when IDA 2004 created a resolution process. We recommended that we include a facilitated resolution process as another WSEMS option. This slide describes the intake coordination process of WSEMS. This is the process from the request to mediation to the actual assignment of mediators at the end. So when a request is received, it goes directly to WSEMS intake coordinator. Jane Burns is responsible as an intake coordinator to shepherd through the WSEMS system all requests that come her way. As we mentioned earlier, Jane is neutral. She has no affiliation, no special affiliation with either schools or parent organization. Jane conducts a very thorough intake process. She gathers a lot of information so that she's able to help determine if the case fits our criteria and component required by law, so then we could take the case. She collects such simple information as child's name, age, school attended, grade in school, disability, if child is living at home with both parents, if receives any outside therapy services, contact information for school and parent, if it is a single or joint request. She also tries to get a good idea of the specific conflict or issues involved, past or present. She's trying to find out history of the parties' relationship, any action they have taken to try to resolve these issues before. She screens, checks for things that may complicate a case, like alleged abuse, either ongoing legal processes like divorce, juvenile courts, juvenile justice system, restraining order on a party, etc. She also tried to get an idea about any cultural or disability-related needs. She asked if there is a due process or IDA or OCR complaint pending, and if so, who filed it. She does a fairly in-depth analysis of the case based on all this information that she has gathered, and that she spent a considerable amount of time educating the parents about the system, providing them feedback about which options are available, what are the benefits of each option, who are the neutrals, and how they are selected. This is called brokering. And all of this feedback is designed to allow the parties to exercise their self-determination in making their own decision if they would choose to go to facilitated IEP, mediation, or the resolution process.
Dispute resolution is most effective when it's used in the earliest stage possible. As you move from the left to right on this diagram, the various dispute resolution processes shown are more coercive, and the outcome is more win-lose and more based on power. Power such as, the more money you have, the more authority you have, potentially the better outcome you might have. The 4 arrows in light green show the options for dispute resolution that parents and schools can use where they will still have some control over the outcome. Except for the first one, the informal meeting, the other 3 are all available through the Wisconsin Special Education Mediation System. IEP facilitation, mediation, and the facilitated resolution process. I would say just a word about the informal meeting. we really think at the mediation system that it's important to communicate with people directly involved as a first step. So, we really encourage parents and schools to try an informal meeting first. We will be discussing all three of these other options today in more detail so that you understand what they are, how they work, and when it's the best time to use them. The arrows in dark green are available in Wisconsin, but not through our system. These are options where parents and schools give their control over and the outcome to someone else. IDEA complaints, where the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction staff decide the outcome. The due process hearings, where administrative law judges decide the outcome. And litigation, where a judge or jury decide the outcome. Common for all three of our Wisconsin special ed mediation system options, all start with a case intake at a neutral site, which isn't the Department of Public Instruction. All are voluntary, all are free, and all use a trained neutral third party from our Wisconsin special ed mediation system roster. By federal and state law, Wisconsin is required to maintain a list, called a roster, in mediation jargon, of mediators. Some states have just a few mediators, other states may have many. Michigan, for example, uses community mediation centers located all over the state for their mediators. Colorado, for example, uses several administrative law judges as mediators. Illinois uses their Department of Education staff as mediators. Wisconsin has a roster of 25 neutrals. A key component to a successful mediation system is the perceived neutrality of its mediators. Pursuant to federal statute, our Wisconsin roster mediators are not employees of the state education agency, so they're not Department of Public Instruction employees, or the local education agency, so they're not employees of a public school district. We go a little further even, and if any roster mediator becomes employed by a board member of a parent organization or is contracted by a school for some reason, they are declared as an inactive member of the roster until their service, for whatever that is, ends. The number of our active neutrals varies. Currently, we have 20 active neutrals and 5 who are inactive at this time. Wisconsin Special Ed Mediation System partners and staff use a very sound application and interview process intended to select a roster that is diverse and impartial. As a result, our mediators have a very broad range of background, ethnicity, mediation style, geographic location, educational background, and varied life experiences. So there's a really wide variety to select from. You can go online, and the link to that site on our website is on this slide, and you can actually read each one of the biographical information that we have on each one of the mediators and facilitators. As I said, they come from different backgrounds: law, psychology, social work, business, education, and you can see that we have a diverse group as well. I would like to say that there's no advantage or disadvantage to having a lawyer or a non-lawyer mediator, and we do have both. So people can select whichever they feel more comfortable with. Wisconsin law requires 2 mediator training components for our roster. Our law requires a 5-day training on special ed mediation for all new roster mediators. Our partners, our system partners, and our staff plan and conduct much of the training for these mediators. But we also include many stakeholders in the training. We include school and parent attorneys, parents, school personnel, so that the mediators really have a very good flavor of the various issues and challenges that parents and schools face from their perspectives. Each mediator, in addition, is also required to complete 1 day of training each year in order to be active on the mediator roster. The mediation system usually does that training in the spring, but it has varied. And we use stakeholders again for this training. We always have a parent and a school attorney together do a legal update for our mediators, and oftentimes bring in guest speakers. Our roster mediators must follow model standards of conduct that were co-drafted by the American Bar Association, the Association for Conflict Resolution, and the American Arbitration Association. As I've mentioned, our roster is used for both mediation and facilitation. Just as an aside, right now, our mediators are paid $113 an hour for any mediation or facilitation session time, and they're also paid for work that they do pre or post sessions, as well as their travel time and expenses. So we're able to get really the cream of the crop, great mediators